When it comes to quarterback rankings, a lot of it is subjective. Everyone is going to have their own opinions and their own criteria. Does quarterback X do something better than quarterback Y? Yes, but what about quarterback Z? He does something better than quarterback X and Y, so does that mean he's better than quarterback X? I personally feel like there are going to be things, no matter how tiny, that each quarterback does that could be considered better than the others, even if you may not see it right away. You can watch as much film as you want, but there are certain things that may not even show up in film. A perfect example would be a quarterback's leadership. You aren't going to notice that when watching the All-22. So I thought, how can I possibly rank a quarterback while trying to be as objective as possible? And it's simple. Stats. Now, before you switch off the video, hear me out. I know that stats can be inflated. For example, if a team is getting blown out and the winning team changes up their defensive personnel, the quarterback of the losing team can inflate their stats in garbage time. Perfect example of this would be the most recent Super Bowl, where we all know that the Chiefs had no chance of winning that game, and if the Eagles had kept in their defensive starters, there's a chance that Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have been able to put up those fourth quarter stats. But nonetheless, those stats are still in the record books. So I decided that instead of putting my own personal opinions into this ranking, I would use something that is not as easy to tear apart. Math. Here's how I came up with these rankings. I went through each active quarterback stats for each season that they've been in the league. It didn't matter how many games they played in each of their seasons, and it didn't matter how much time they spent in each game. If they threw or ran with the ball at any point and generated a stat, it was included. Now, to keep things fair, each quarterback's total stat in each category was divided by the number of seasons they've been in the league. So yes, we're dealing with averages here. That also meant that for the 5 quarterbacks that have only played a single season, they were given their own category and won't be included with the rest. And the reason I did this was because if I just went by total stats, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, and Russell Wilson would be miles ahead of everyone else because those 3 have been in the league considerably longer than everyone else. I then decided that each quarterback was going to be ranked using a point system. Each quarterback received a score in 10 separate categories. The score that I used was simply where they ranked in each category. For example, if someone led the league in a specific category, they received 1 point. If they were at the bottom of the league, they received 26 points. You might be wondering why 26 if there are 32 teams. Well, 3 of the active quarterbacks this season will be rookies, and 5 of the quarterbacks have only played 1 season. So that's 8 quarterbacks that didn't receive a score for the final list. For those good at math, you know that equals 34. But 2 of the teams this season haven't designated a starter yet, so Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Anthony Richardson, and Daniel Jones are all receiving a score. After each quarterback received their scores in each category, those scores were totaled together. And so, just like golf, the lower the score, the better the rank. And just to make sure all of my bases are checked, the only category where the less of something you have, the better the ranking are interceptions. Obviously, the less interceptions you have, the better your ranking is going to be. And so, here are the categories that each quarterback received a ranking for: passing attempts per season, passing completions per season, passing yards per season, rushing yards per season, total yards per season, yards per attempt, completion percentage, touchdowns per season, interceptions per season, and career passer rating. Now, is this the best way to rank quarterbacks? No, but I don't believe there is a perfect rating system. But I think the way that I've done it here is a way to rank them in a fair and objective manner. So, without further ado, here's my statistical ranking for all active quarterbacks in 2025. First, let's talk about the 5 quarterbacks that have only played a single season. The ranking should not surprise you if you've watched all 5 of them play. Unfortunately for Drake May and Michael Penix Jr., they didn't play an entire season, so the numbers are going to be naturally lower than the other 3. So first, at number 5, we have Penix. He only played a few games near the end of the season, so we will actually see what he can really do in this upcoming season. At number 4, we have Drake May, who also only played in a handful of games, though he showed real promise in each of them. Like Penix, it will be fun to see if May can sustain the numbers like these for an entire season, especially in the AFC East where Josh Allen is the top dog. At number 3, barely, is Caleb Williams. It's very telling that he only cleared May by a single point, but his efficiency is what brought him down. Hopefully, with a new coach who happens to be one of the best offensive minds in the league, he can improve on his first season, but if he doesn't, he could enter the conversation of being a massive bust. However, he was a good rusher, though it's not clear if those rushing yards were useful since none of them translated into a rushing touchdown. At number 2 is Bo Nix, and it's clear that his interceptions brought him down, though it still wouldn't have been enough to make him number 1. The best that could be said was that his passing touchdowns were on par with number 1, but lost out on the top ranking in total touchdowns because his rushing touchdowns were 3 fewer. It's clear that if Nix continues to play like he did in his first season, he could be a real force to be reckoned with in next year's ranking. For now, he has to settle for number 2 because coming in at number 1 is of course Jaden Daniels. I'll put it to you this way, if I had included first-year quarterbacks into the main list, his numbers would have put him at the number 2 spot. For a rookie, that's impressive. No one is going to deny that his rookie season was one of, if not the best rookie seasons of all time, but it's actually because of these numbers and another impressive rookie season from the year prior that I decided to separate the first-year quarterbacks. You see, many people thought CJ Stroud was going to be a top 5 quarterback this season after his first one, but last season, Stroud's numbers dipped. His touchdowns went down and his interceptions went up. For that reason, I felt it necessary to rank first-year quarterbacks in their own category. We'll see this season what these 5 quarterbacks are really made of. With this ranking out of the way, it's time to move on to the actual list, starting with number 26. At number 26, we have Kenny Pickett. Across the board, Kenny Pickett ranked in the bottom 5 of each category except for one, that being interceptions. And in terms of interceptions, Pickett led the league with the fewest interceptions per season at 4.7. Unfortunately, he was at the bottom of the league in touchdowns per season with 6.7. Each of these stats shouldn't be too much of a surprise though, given that his passing stats were not great. One thing that Pickett may have going for him is that he is one of 2 active quarterbacks on this list that have only been in the league for 3 seasons, and so going into his 4th, he has a chance to prove himself. But with the starting position for the Browns currently up in the air, there's no guarantee that he'll play an entire season of football. At least he can say that he has a Super Bowl ring. So there's that. Coming in at number 25 is Anthony Richardson. I'm sure this doesn't come as a shock to many, and I think that the only reason why Pickett is below him is because Richardson is a much better runner than Pickett is. In all of the passing stats, Richardson came in dead last, and that should not be a surprise given that he is the only quarterback to have a completion percentage below 60%. In fact, his last place percentage is almost 10% less than the quarterback above him. I see a lot of stock is put into quarterbacks having cannons for arms, but I think Richardson is a perfect example of the fact that a quarterback can have a strong arm, but if they don't have the accuracy, it doesn't matter. But, like Pickett, he does have a chance to improve this season. However, also like Pickett, there's a chance that Richardson doesn't even start for the Colts this season. Future editor JB Wizard here. Unfortunately, due to my inability to copy and paste the formula correctly, there was a slight error in a single calculation and I copied the wrong number to quarterback Justin Fields, and since I recorded the audio before I created the slides for each quarterback, that translated into the slides for quarterbacks 24 through 20 to be incorrect, and thus the rankings are out of order for those 5. So the audio is going to be out of order and is going to sound a little weird for the next few minutes, but I have gone through to make sure that quarterbacks 19 through 1 are still correct, and for my sanity, they are. I fixed the slides as best I could in post, which is why you're hearing me now. So, starting now, the real rankings will be crudely fixed on the slides. I will be back in a moment to let you know when everything is good. Quite possibly the first surprise on this list given last season, at number 23 we have Sam Darnold. And at the same time, maybe this isn't a surprise as one great season wasn't enough to save Darnold from being in the bottom 5. And as you can see, Darnold over the course of his career hasn't ranked high in anything, although his one saving grace is that he ranks 16th in interceptions, which helped his overall ranking, though not by much. His stint with the Vikings allowed him to have the best season of his career in terms of raw stats and is what kept him from being in the bottom 3. Now that he's come back to the NFC West as the starting quarterback for the Seahawks, he has the chance to prove that his success with the Vikings wasn't a fluke. At number 22 comes our first longtime player with Joe Flacco. Having been in the league for 17 seasons, his stats have been relatively consistent, though in his later seasons they were considerably lower, which is what likely led to him ranking so low. While his normal stats have been sitting toward the middle of the pack, it's actually his rushing stats that have let him down, as he ranks dead last in rushing yards per season. While he comes from a time when quarterbacks weren't known for their rushing, his longevity is actually hurting him in these rankings. Right now, he is being considered for the starting position for the Browns, but Kenny Pickett might also be getting that job. At his age, I doubt that Flacco is ever going to get those rushing stats up, but perhaps he can add to his passing stats with his upcoming season, should he be named the starting quarterback. Coming in at number 20, we have possibly the second big surprise of this ranking, but in the opposite direction, Bryce Young. Now, during the end of the 2024 season, after being benched and brought back in, Young had a mini resurgence which likely helped propel him to the 20th spot. Unfortunately, while his overall passing stats did improve, his efficiency kept him from going any higher. Ranking last in yards per attempt, almost last in completion percentage, and low in total touchdowns, he has a lot of ground to make up if he hopes to climb in these rankings. For fans of Young though, hopefully he can continue his resurgence into the 2025 season. And coming in at number 24, we have Justin Fields. While Fields did rank high in rushing yards per season, that wasn't enough to save him in the overall rankings due to the fact that over the course of his 4 seasons in the league, he's averaged 22 interceptions per season, which leads the league. Given the fact that he's ranked lower in passing stats and the fact that he currently has the lowest passer rating of the qualifying quarterbacks, the only thing keeping Fields from being dead last is his rushing. Perhaps he can improve now that he's starting fresh as a starter for the Jets, but only time will tell on whether or not he can truly make an impact in this league. Coming in at number 21, we have Gino Smith. Now, despite being in the league for 11 seasons, he wasn't a starting quarterback for many of them. It wasn't until he went to Seattle that he really took off. Unfortunately, due to his inconsistent play, most of his passing stats are near the bottom of the league on a per-season basis. However, the fact that he has kept his interceptions fairly low has helped keep him out of the bottom 5 quarterbacks. Now that he has a fresh start with the Raiders, back under head coach Pete Carroll, perhaps he can keep improving and get himself higher in these rankings. It also won't hurt that the co-owner of the Raiders happens to be the greatest quarterback of all time. Okay, so sorry for that. I was trying to get this done as fast as I could, and thankfully only 5 quarterbacks were affected. So with that out of the way, the rest of the rankings are correct. Carry on. At number 19, to the shock of probably no one, we have Daniel Jones. While he ranked 20th and below in most of his passing stats, it was actually his rushing yards and interceptions that saved him from falling lower on this ranking. Ranking 7th in the league in both stats, he has cemented himself over the course of his career as a decent runner. Unfortunately, that's where the good stops. Now that's not to say that he can't have a great 2025 season, but the Colts haven't even named a concrete starter yet, so who knows if he'll even be able to show any improvement in the upcoming season. At number 18, we come to the first of many controversial rankings with Jordan Love. Before you attack me, remember these are based on pure stats, and if any fans out there are being honest with themselves, Love has been, for lack of a better term, hit or miss. He's been in the league for 4 seasons and did see very limited playing time in his first 2, which of course affected his overall rankings. The thing is though, we're talking total career stats, so each quarterback is being held to the same standard, and his overall passing stats have ranked pretty low. The best thing though is that he has an opportunity to continue to improve as a passer as his career goes on. He might be 18th right now, but I have no doubt that he'll only continue to climb. Coming in at number 17, we have Trevor Lawrence. Now, I'm betting most people are probably going to agree with this placement. While his passing attempts and completions rank higher amongst all quarterbacks, he ranks 24th in interceptions per season, which isn't ideal for a starting quarterback who was the first overall pick in the 2021 draft. What's really concerning is the fact that he ranks 23rd in yards per attempt while ranking 24th in interceptions. In order to climb these rankings, Lawrence is going to have to continue to improve on his efficiency while also making sure to take care of the football when he's throwing it, but I'm sure that won't be a problem for a number 1 overall pick. And speaking of a number 1 overall pick, we have number 16 with Baker Mayfield. Over the course of his 7 seasons in the league, Mayfield has done enough to not be ranked below 18th on any stat except for one. Though he ranks 10th overall in touchdowns per season, he also ranks 25th in interceptions. This has contributed to his 16th overall ranking. But with him as the franchise quarterback for the Bucs, I have no doubt that Baker is going to continue to shine as a passer. He just needs to work on taking better care of the football. The first thing you might notice about number 15 on this list, Matthew Stafford, is that he beat Baker Mayfield by 1 point. And as a passer, Stafford ranks 7th in passing and 9th in total yards. No doubt that's due to how long he's been in the league. In fact, he's only surpassed in longevity by one other quarterback. While his low ranking in both interceptions and rushing yards keep him out of the top 10, there's no doubt that Stafford has been one of the best passing quarterbacks over the course of his career. While there are questions about how much longer he'll be playing in the NFL, there's no question on how good Stafford has been while he's been playing in it. Moving on to number 14, we have Tua Tagovailoa. I'm guessing for some this might also be controversial since people wouldn't think that Tua is better than Stafford. However, statistically, where Tua shines is his efficiency and accuracy. He's the second quarterback named so far to rank above 10th in yards per attempt, and in terms of accuracy, he's ranked 2nd. Now his rushing yards do rank near the bottom of this list, and perhaps that's a good sign as he seems to get injured on plays where he runs. As a starter for the Dolphins under Mike McDaniel, Tua is likely to continue to be more efficient and accurate so long as he can stay healthy. At number 13, we have Kyler Murray, and it's easy to see where Murray excels. While his passing numbers are the definition of mid, it's his rushing and his accuracy when he does pass that has helped him rise in his rankings. Now, he did miss a lot of the 2023 season, but he has put up great rushing numbers over the course of his career. And if he continues to improve on his passing, he should easily establish himself as a great quarterback. Of course, that would also depend on how good the next Call of Duty is. At number 12, we have what many would call the best statue quarterback in Jared Goff. Now, it's clear that Goff is a great passer, but being ranked 25th in rushing brings down every other stat. At least Joe Flacco has an excuse because of his age. However, that's not the only stat that Goff has struggled with, as he is ranked 21st in interceptions. As he continues to play for the Lions, I have no doubt that his passing will continue to improve, but his only hope for bringing up his total overall ranking is to take much better care of the ball because, let's face it, he's never going to be a mobile quarterback. Now, number 11 is going to cause some issues, I can already tell, but once again, these rankings are based on stats only. We aren't taking accomplishments into account. If we were, Jalen Hurts would likely be much higher. However, as good of a rushing quarterback as he is, his passing stats have been, whether anyone likes it or not, average. If Hurts hopes to improve his overall ranking, he has to become a better passer. He's always going to have the rushing stats to help him out, but it's not something that's going to help him increase his overall rank, at least statistically. Now, you can move forward with your tax on me, especially as we move into the top 10, because I'm sure you've noticed that a few quarterbacks still haven't been mentioned. Like number 10, Brock Perty. Now, I hope while you're writing your comment about how this list is trash because Perty ranks higher than Hurts, you should take a moment to look at their scores and notice that they're separated by a single point. Now, with that out of the way, it's easy to see why Perty made the top 10 above Hurts: his passing. Not only has Perty been the most efficient quarterback over his career, ranking first in yards per attempt, he also ranks higher in passing yards per season, completion percentage, and he currently has the best career passer rating of all active quarterbacks. Despite the fact that people want to write him off after a rough season, he still put up good numbers even after all the losses. As he looks to bounce back after a weird season, his numbers are likely to push him further up this list. Again, you may or may not like the ranking, but Perty has proven that, statistically, he is a top 10 quarterback. If Perty's ranking wasn't enough to get me a few comments, Dak Prescott coming in at number 9 is sure to get way more, considering that Prescott's postseason reputation is underwhelming. But since this takes totals into account, it simply doesn't matter, as Prescott makes his mark during the regular season. While his interceptions drop his overall ranking a little bit, he more than makes up for that with his other passing stats, where he doesn't rank below 11th in any of those stats. Now, while his rushing stats aren't anything to know about, that's never been one of the things that he's relied on throughout his career. So, despite the lack of postseason success, during the regular season, Prescott is one of the better quarterbacks. And this upcoming season will determine if he continues to grow or regress. At number 8, we have potentially another controversial pick, as Aaron Rodgers finally makes his way into this ranking. He's regarded as one of the best passers of all time, and while his numbers have gone down as he's gotten older, they are still better than most. His longevity is likely what has gotten him this high on this list, but if you look at his rankings in the later categories, it becomes clearer why. He is one of the 6 quarterbacks on the list that has a passer rating above 100, which is made even more impressive since he's been in the league the longest. But what surprised me the most was the fact that he ranked second in interceptions at roughly 6.5 interceptions per season. And if you remember, Kenny Pickett was ranked first with 4.7 interceptions per season, but Pickett has only been in the league for 3 seasons, and one of those seasons was as a backup, which limited his playing time. Meaning that Rodgers, over the course of 20 seasons, 19 if you want to be technical because of 2023, keeping his interceptions under 7 per season is incredible. In what is likely to be his final season in the NFL, it will be interesting to see how he does with the Steelers as his career comes to an end. At number 7 is Lamar Jackson. Once again, I think it's important to remember that this ranking has nothing to do with personal accomplishments. As good as Lamar Jackson has been over the past few seasons, there have been seasons in his career where his passing stats have not been good enough to put him higher in this ranking. He's always been an elite runner. No one is disputing that. In fact, he's never had a season where he's rushed less than 700 yards, and that's where he excels, in his rushing. However, those rushing yards have not resulted in a ton of rushing touchdowns, or at least not as many touchdowns as you might think. And up until the last 2 seasons, he simply hadn't thrown the ball enough to make up the ground needed to get him higher on this list. That being said, he has vastly improved his passing and continues to be a more well-rounded quarterback than he has been in the past, and I have no doubt that he will continue to climb higher on this list the longer his career goes on. However, staying in front of him is number 6, Josh Allen. If you look across his stat rankings, you will notice that he is one of the most well-rounded quarterbacks in the league. He excels at passing and rushing, and at 41.7 touchdowns per season, he is, to put it mildly, a touchdown machine. Unfortunately, while he excels at scoring points, he's also, over the course of his career, excelled at giving the ball to the other team, ranking 23rd in interceptions. Now make no mistake, Josh Allen is a beast and will most likely continue to be a major threat to any team he faces in the upcoming season. He needs to replicate the 2024 season though in regards to interceptions. He only threw 6 over the course of the season, which was a career low. However, he also threw the ball less than he has in the past. It should be interesting to see what version of Josh Allen we get in 2025, but one thing is for sure, whatever version we get, he's going to dominate. We've reached the top 5, and here's where it's going to get a little contentious, because I already can hear people saying that while CJ Stroud is good, he's not better than Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. And while I would agree with that, the stats do say otherwise. But if it makes anyone feel better, as you can see, the only thing that put Stroud ahead of Allen was the fact that Stroud simply hasn't thrown as many interceptions as Allen has. And while yes, Stroud has only played 2 seasons of NFL football to Allen's 7, that goes to show just how good Stroud has been, even if last season wasn't as good as his first. Now, time will tell if Stroud could continue to put up good numbers or if they'll continue to decline, but for now, Stroud is, stats-wise, the 5th best quarterback in the league. Here we go. Number 4, Justin Herbert. As you've no doubt noticed by now, the point separation has remained relatively small as we've entered the top 10. And number 4 is no different, with only 3 points separating numbers 4 and number 5. And I know that people are, once again, going to point to overall success as to why Herbert should not be above quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. And once again, I would agree. However, if you look at Herbert's ranking in each category, in 7 of the 10 categories, Herbert ranks within the top 10. His efficiency, rushing yards, and interceptions are in the middle of the pack, but that doesn't take away that as a passer, Herbert can be considered elite or approaching elite. With another season under his new head coach, Herbert can continue to get better and finally prove why people continue to praise him as a great passer. By now you've noticed that there's one quarterback that hasn't been mentioned, and you're probably wondering why. Despite the fact that his last 2 seasons have been the worst of his long career, Russell Wilson has been one of the better quarterbacks over the course of his entire career and has done enough to be number 3 on this list. Other than interceptions, Wilson ranks in the top 10 in every other category, and that ranking is almost canceled out by the fact that he ranks 3rd in yards per attempt and 4th in total touchdowns. Whether you like it or hate it, and whether or not you think that Wilson has lost a step, he's still been a great quarterback for his entire career. And that means that we've reached the final 2 quarterbacks, and if you've been paying attention, the top 2 should not be a surprise. The first thing you'll probably notice about Joe Burrow's final score is that it's the same as Russell Wilson's. What puts him slightly ahead though, and thus at number 2, is that Burrow ranks higher in more categories than Wilson does. Put simply, Joe Burrow has been the most accurate quarterback in the NFL. Despite the fact that he's missed the playoffs the past 2 seasons, when talking stats, it doesn't matter. He still remains the only AFC quarterback to have beaten Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in a playoff game, and he remains the only AFC quarterback other than Patrick Mahomes to have made it to the Super Bowl over the past 6 seasons. This season is, for most people, a make or break season for Burrow in terms of him being considered a top 5 quarterback in the league, but at least statistically, only one other quarterback can say that he's actually better. And to the shock of absolutely no one, that one quarterback is Patrick Mahomes. Listen, love him or hate him, you can't deny that he's been the best quarterback in the league over the course of his career. Being ranked 1st or 2nd in 7 of the 10 categories is what puts him this high. Not even his high number of interceptions can affect his final score. His statistical domination has just been that good. And while his numbers over the course of the past few seasons have gone down, it would take a total collapse of his game for him to relinquish the top spot anytime soon. In fact, like it or not, he may never give up that spot while he's an active quarterback. And there you have it. Those are my rankings for all active quarterbacks based solely on stats. Again, is it a perfect way to rank quarterbacks? No, of course not. And you may not even agree with the method that I used to rank them, especially because within each of those stats, there are other factors that could either help or hinder them. And so if you have your own rankings, please feel free to post them in the comments below. The only thing I ask is that you at least be respectful. This is the first time I've done a video like this. And if you like what you saw, then please leave a like and a comment. And if you want to support the channel so I can continue to make videos like this and other content, consider clicking the subscribe button. I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Catch you later.